the prince and Arewa had gone deep down into the forest, the prince stopped the carriage and suddenly transformed into a monstrous creature, followed by his companions. Arewa gasped in shock and fear as she witnessed the terrifying sight. Filled with panic, Arewa turned to run, but the monstrous creature swiftly caught her. This monster was not like any other monsters. He was clever and cunning, and he had a plan to visit the beautiful kingdom of Okoto. The monster didn't want to scare anyone in the kingdom, so he decided to go there as a handsome prince, dressed in the finest clothes and bearing many expensive gifts. His servants were curious about how he planned to achieve this look. "How will you become a handsome prince?" one of his servants asked. The monster laughed out loud and said, "I am the mighty monster, and I can do anything." And with that, he used his magical powers to transform into a very handsome prince. His servants gasped in amazement at the transformation. The next day, the prince turned his servants into humans to represent his people. They dressed in splendid clothes and carried baskets filled with gifts. Together, they set out on their journey to the kingdom of Okoto. As they traveled, the prince and his servants encountered many wonders along the way. They passed through lush forests, crossed sparkling rivers, and climbed towering mountains. Each step of the journey brought them closer to their destination. Finally, after many days of travel, they arrived at the gates of the kingdom of Okoto. As they made their grand entrance into the kingdom, the villagers couldn't help but stare in awe and amazement. Their eyes widened, mouths agape, as they witnessed the sheer beauty and majesty that radiated from the handsome-looking prince and his companions. It was a sight that etched itself into the memories of all who were fortunate enough to witness it. As they stared in wonders at the prince and his companion, their mouths hanging open in amazement, the prince and his friends walked with grace and elegance, their every step exuding majesty. The villagers watched in awe as they passed by, their hearts filled with admiration. It was a sight that would stay with them forever, a memory to cherish for a lifetime. The prince and his companions continued on their journey, but little did they know their arrival had not gone unnoticed. High atop his throne in the grand palace, the king of Okoto watched as the prince and his companions made their way through the village. He was intrigued by their presence, wondering who they could be and what they wanted. Meanwhile, in another part of the palace, the princess of Okoto was going about her day when she heard the commotion outside. Curious, she rushed to the window to see what was happening, and there, in the midst of the crowd, she saw the handsome prince. Her heart skipped a beat as she watched him, her cheeks flushing with excitement. Without a second thought, she raced out of the palace, determined to meet him. As the prince and his companions approached the palace gates, they were greeted by the king himself. The king looked upon them with awe, impressed by their regal appearance and noble demeanor. "Welcome to the kingdom of Okoto," the king said, his voice filled with warmth and hospitality. "What brings you to our humble land?" The prince stepped forward, a confident smile on his face. "Your Majesty," he began, "we have come to seek an audience with you. But first, allow me introduce myself. I am Prince Chinedu, and these are my companions. We have traveled from afar to meet you." The king nodded, his curiosity piqued. "Well, Prince Chinedu, you and your companions are most welcome here. Please, come inside and tell me what brings you to the kingdom of Okoto." As they entered the palace, the princess arrived, her eyes sparkling with excitement. She couldn't believe her luck. The handsome prince was here in her kingdom. Without hesitation, she ran up to him, her heart racing with anticipation. "Oh, father," she exclaimed, throwing her arms around the prince. "I have finally found my husband." The king smiled at his daughter's enthusiasm, but his mind was filled with questions. Who was this prince? and why had he come to Okoto? He knew that he would have to find out soon enough. Inside the palace, the prince and his companions were ushered into the grand hall, where they were greeted by the king's advisors and courtiers. Everyone was eager to hear what the prince had to say. With a gracious bow, Prince Chinedu addressed the assembled crowd. "Good people of Okoto," he began, his voice ringing out clear and strong. "We have come to your kingdom in search of something very dear to my heart, the hand of your beloved Princess Arewa in marriage." The kingdom erupted with whispers and murmurs as the courtiers exchanged glances. The king's advisors leaned in close, their expressions serious and thoughtful. But before anyone could speak, the king himself stepped forward, his face grave but determined. "Prince Chinedu," he said, his voice tinged with sadness, "I am afraid that what you seek may not be easily obtained. For you see, my daughter Princess Arewa is not just any princess. She is my only child, who will bear this kingdom a heir to the throne." The prince's heart sank at the king's words, but he refused to be discouraged. He had come too far to give up now. "I understand, your majesty," he replied, his voice steady and unwavering. "But I assure you, my intentions are pure. I love your daughter with all my heart, and I will do anything to win her hand in marriage." "Very well, Prince Chinedu," the king said, his tone softened by compassion. "I will consider your request. But know this, the decision ultimately lies with my daughter. It is she who must choose her own destiny." With that, the king dismissed the court, leaving the prince and his companions alone in the grand hall. The king was still worried because he had asked the prince the kingdom he had come from. The prince mentioned it, but the king seemed to have never heard of that kingdom before. He was going to ask more questions when the princess interrupted. He decided to talk to the prince before the wedding to make sure he was a good match for his daughter. The prince was nervous, but the king called him to his chambers. He wanted to make a good impression. After talking to the prince, the king felt a bit better. The day of the wedding arrived, and the kingdom was filled with joy. There were decorations everywhere, and the people cheered as the princess walked down the aisle. She looked beautiful in her wedding gown, and the prince couldn't take his eyes off her. The ceremony was lovely, with music and flowers and laughter. The king was proud to see his daughter so happy. After the vows were exchanged and the kings were placed on their fingers, the prince and the princess kissed and everyone cheered. There was a grand feast in the palace. There were delicious food and drinks and music and dancing. The prince and the princess danced together, smiling and laughing, surrounded by their friends and family. As Deyemi stood watching the wedding ceremony, he felt a deep sadness in his heart. Arewa, the girl he had loved more than anything in the world, was marrying someone else. He couldn't bear the thought of losing her. He watched as Arewa and her new husband, the mysterious prince, exchanged vows. But instead of feeling happy, Deyemi felt uneasy. Something just didn't seem right. After the ceremony, Deyemi couldn't stop thinking about Arewa and the prince. He knew he had to find out the truth, so he made a plan to secretly follow them. Eventually, the festivities came to an end, and the guests began to leave. The prince and the princess said goodbye to their families and friends and retired to their chambers for the night, so they could be up early the next day to begin their journey to the prince's kingdom. The next day, the handsome prince and princess Arewa packed their things and prepared to leave for the prince's kingdom. Deyemi watched from a hidden spot, his heart heavy with sadness. He couldn't bear to see Arewa leave, knowing that she was meant to be with him. He watched as Arewa hugged her parents goodbye, tears streaming down their faces. It was a heartbreaking moment as they bid each other farewell, promising to visit again soon. Meanwhile, the prince and Arewa climbed into their carriage and set off on their journey. They traveled for many days, through valleys and over mountains, their hearts filled with excitement for their new life together. But little did they know, Deyemi was secretly following them. determined to uncover the truth about the mysterious prince and save Arewa from any danger. As they journeyed on, Deyemi kept his distance, hiding in the shadows and watching their every move. He knew he had to be careful not to be seen, or else his plan would be ruined. Finally, after many days of travel, when the prince and Arewa had gone deep down into the forest, the prince stopped the carriage and suddenly transformed into a monstrous creature, followed by his companions. Arewa gasped in shock and fear as she witnessed the terrifying sight. Filled with panic, Arewa turned to run, but the monstrous creature swiftly caught her, its menacing laughter echoing through the forest. Arewa trembled with fright as the creature spoke, revealing its sinister plan. "I heard tales of your beauty and pride," the creature growled, its voice dripping with malice. "I knew you would never willingly marry me, so I devised a scheme to deceive you." Arewa's heart sank as she realized the truth. She had been tricked by the creature's cunning deception. "Now I shall deal with you and teach you a lesson for your pride," the creature snarled, its claws gleaming in the dim light of the forest. Just as all hope seemed lost, a familiar figure emerged from the shadows. It was Deyemi, who had been secretly following them all along. Determined to protect Arewa at all costs, with courage blazing in his eyes, Deyemi confronted the monstrous creature. "Leave her be," he commanded, his voice resolute and unwavering. The creature roared in fury and lunged at Deyemi, but he stood his ground, ready to defend Arewa with every ounce of his strength. A fierce battle erupted between Deyemi and the monstrous creature, each blow struck with the ferocity of a lion. Despite being outnumbered, Deyemi fought valiantly, refusing to back down in the face of danger. With each swing of his sword, Deyemi drew closer to victory. His determination never wavered as he battled against the creature's relentless onslaught. Finally, with a mighty blow, Deyemi struck down the monstrous creature, its companions defeated alongside it. Arewa rushed into Deyemi's arms, tears of relief streaming down her face. "Thank you for saving me," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. Deyemi smiled warmly, his heart brimming with love for Arewa. "I will always protect you," he vowed, holding her closely. As Arewa and Deyemi arrived back at the palace, the king and the queen were shocked to see their beloved daughter looking weak and injured. They rushed to her side, their hearts filled with worry and concern. Deyemi narrated the entire story to the king and queen and their courtiers, detailing the treacherous journey they had endured and how he had bravely fought to save Arewa from the monstrous creature. The king and queen were speechless, their jaws dropping in astonishment at the tale they had just heard. But they were also filled with gratitude towards Deyemi for his courageous actions in saving their precious daughter, the princess. When Arewa woke up from her injuries, she felt a deep sense of remorse for the trouble she had caused her parents by falling into the trap of the monstrous creature. With tears in her eyes, she apologized profusely to her parents for her recklessness. "I am so sorry, mother and father," Arewa said, her voice filled with regret. "I should have listened to your warnings and not let my pride blind me. Please forgive me." The king and queen embraced their daughter, tears of joy streaming down their faces. "Of course, my dear," the king said, his voice filled with love. "We are just thankful that you are safe and sound." But then, to everyone's surprise, Arewa made a bold declaration. "I have realized that true love and bravery lie not in the grandeur of a prince's title, but in the courage and selflessness of a humble warrior like Deyemi," she said, looking at Deyemi with admiration in her eyes. "I want to marry him and spend the rest of my life by his side," Arewa declared, her voice filled with determination. The king and queen exchanged astonished glances, but they could see the sincerity in Arewa's eye. They knew that Deyemi's bravery had won their daughter's heart, and they could not deny her happiness. With tears of joy in their eyes, the king and queen gave their blessings for Arewa and Deyemi to be married. The entire kingdom rejoiced at the news, celebrating the union of their beloved princess with the brave young warrior who had saved her. And so, amidst great pomp and ceremony, Arewa and Deyemi were married in a grand wedding ceremony, surrounded by their family, friends, and the people of the kingdom. As they exchanged vows and promised to love and cherish each other for all eternity, Arewa and Deyemi knew that their love story was just beginning. Together, they would face whatever challenges the future held, knowing that their love would always prevail. And as they rode off into the sunset, hand in hand, they knew that their adventure was far from over. For theirs was a love that had conquered all obstacles, a love that would endure for all eternity. So, dear friends, this ends the story of the princess and the monstrous monster. Arewa finally got married to Deyemi after realizing his love for her. There's a lot to learn from this story. Love knows no bounds. Until next time, bye. Thank you for watching. This is Tales by Joyful. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can also turn on your post notification so you'll be notified whenever we post another story. See you next time. Bye.